Welcome back to the world's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. Why, Jimmy Pharaoh?
Well, because Jim Beam said so.
Man, do you love Jim Beam as much as I do?
I always loved Jim Beam, but that's a whole different issue.
That is an
Let's
issue.
not get into that one. Should I go under the table now? Love Jim Beam. Drink up.
I want to say welcome everybody on this wonderful Thursday. We have a real special guest. We'll get to him shortly. At the board is Abe. Abe here on a wonderful Thursday. He's not at the desk right now.
That's because he's busy working his production
he's busy
butt
being
off.
a working bee.
Say hi, Abe. Do I have to? He's thinking about
What's going on, guys?
Hey!
Like, really?
Hey!
Yeah, there you go.
What's going
Little crazy
on?
start.
All right, so real quick,
Yeah.
the submarine that was
Oh.
investigating the Titanic.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
again, at the time that we were setting up this show, they were still looking for them in hopes that they could find these individuals. And when I got home from work, it was already said that the submarine had imploded.
Right.
I thought we would just name some of the people who are on that submarine and show a little bit of respect.
Okay.
I hope I don't hack up their names. I try not to.
Okay.
Hamish Harding, British explorer and private jet dealer, 58,
Right.
chairman of Action Aviation.
Okay.
Shahzada Dawood and Sulman Dawood,
Okay.
48, a member of one of Pakistan's most prominent families.
Wow.
He serves as vice chairman of the board of Engro Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that Shul Dawood was his son.
Mm.
Paul Henry Nargolet, French maritime explorer. Paul Henry Nargolet,
French.
73, is
Nargolet.
the director of underwater research programming.
Okay.
Stockton Rush, Ocean Gate CEO. Stockton Rush was confirmed as the 5th passenger,
Right.
and they now have been announced as deceased. Jimmy Pharaoh.
Can I tell you some weird conversations I heard about this today?
Absolutely.
Okay. Somebody was saying, well, you had was it $250,000 a person or something like that? Do I have this number right?
You'd be close, I think, yeah.
I don't know if we're getting just completely insensitive, but somebody was like, well, you paid $250,000 to go look at a boat. You had money to burn like that. Oh, well. Man, that'd be rough.
I think those people were artists, like you're an artist.
Right. They sound like executives.
Well, no, but they're artists, right? They're explorers, right? They're, explorers.
Jacques Cousteau was an explorer.
Yeah, and these are explorers. They're going to look at the Titanic. Are they at the level as a full-time explorer? No, I don't think so.
Can I be honest? If I had the money, I would want to see the Titanic. Am I allowed to say that?
Would you fly to Mars?
Very simple kind of man that I am.
Would you fly to Mars if possible?
If I could afford it and they told me it was safe, yeah, I would like to see Mars. Sure, why not? Remember that Martian on the Bugs Bunny cartoon?
Little Patty
That'd
says
be
the
great.
son was only 19.
Oh, that's
I don't know if
awful.
it's good news for the family, but
Awful.
from what I understand, that this kind of implosion is an instant, quick
It's got to
death,
be.
which
But
is,
wait a minute, though. Isn't there like pressure and stuff?
no, see, that's what I thought too. But
Okay.
from what I understand, it's like a balloon. You don't even see
just
it coming.
burst.
Boom, done.
Well, you're done then.
Yeah.
And you didn't even have a chance to think about it.
Which is kind of
I
good.
think that's so. Yeah. Oh, that's awful. Have you heard anything crazy about that there's two Titanics and that the real Titanic never even existed? Have you heard this crap this
I
week?
have not.
Yeah, I've been hearing some weird stuff. Anyway, it's absolutely tragic, one way or the other.
Besides our wonderful guest today, June 24th, Big Brother star JoJo in studio.
Man.
That's Saturday at 11 a.m.
Ooh, okay.
June
okay.
29th, wife of Wahoo McDaniel. We're going to be welcoming Karen McDaniel.
Another beautiful lady, yep.
And the week after that, I've got a special surprise, not officially announced
Yeah,
yet.
I don't see it here.
But you will be very excited when you find out.
I will.
Oh, yes, you will.
You want to pass me a note under the table or
I'm
something?
going to give you two things and tell me if you could guess.
Oh, I'm going to look like a dope. Go ahead. Don't say handkerchief. I'm going to be completely lost.
I'm going to say could have beaten Backlund.
Oh,
Hold
God, that's
on.
a bunch of guys.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Yeah.
Doink the Clown.
Oh, no. Doink the Clown. You're not going to bring in the little fella who likes to go after my nutsack, are you?
Not putting the two
All right, as long
clues
as
together.
I'm not.
Could have beaten Backlund.
And Doink the Clown?
Well, you know what? Wrong clue on Backlund.
Okay.
Could have been Backlund.
Could have been Backlund?
Yes.
I'm not going to guess
All right,
this.
well, we'll move on.
Yeah,
I'd like to thank the band that sings
the
the theme
hell?
song for Monte the Pharaoh and Jimmy
fuck?
Farrow, along with his partner Bart Griggs, make up the band Wisteria Hall.
Uh-huh.
Buttman! Wisteria Hall sings such songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page. Hit like and subscribe. Go to Spotify, Apple Music, Reverb Nation. Download all Wisteria Hall's music, which is totally incredible. Do we, again, are we working on a third album?
Yep, if we could just get it into the schedule, we're trying. Yep, absolutely.
And if you didn't know it, you are watching the world's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. You could catch us on the Monte the Pharaoh YouTube page, the Monte the Pharaoh Facebook Live page. Hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, the Monte the Pharaoh Twitch TV page. And if you're lucky enough to live in New York, catch us 3 times weekly, channel 150. Hold on. There you go, baby. I tried to hold it, and I couldn't do it.
And you got blessed on the air. That's good juju.
Amen. Channel 115 every Tuesday at 9:30 and Saturday at 11 a.m. and Channel 20 on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Where over 150,000 viewers watch us weekly. No wonder the great Jim Beam chose us.
That's no wonder at all. We're smoking Impact every week.
And guess what? Our guest will be in the reduced version. This is going to be a long interview.
Condensed.
The cable version will have the bullet points of the interview, but I don't know. You might have to make it a 2-parter, bro.
We'll have to see what we got.
And listen, guys, really important note here. We're also on the network. We are the premier show on that network.
The flagship.
Right? The flagship show. Thank you.
That's right.
The Intuitive Network.
Spelled IN2ITIVE.
Download it. It's free. Guys, I'm just telling you. It's free. Download it. Documentaries, movies, comedy. It's a mini Netflix, a startup Netflix, which is actually, to me, is better than Netflix. And they have the world's greatest pro wrestling broadcast on there. And again, guys, it's free. It costs you nothing. You're sitting at work, hit the Intuitive Network, play a movie, play a video.
But most importantly,
play Monte and the Pharaoh.
Thank you. Intuitive. Get into it.
We'll be right back with a friend of the show, a man, if you didn't know, you're going to know, that movies would be made out of this gentleman's story. I could tell you personally, this is the first time I'm meeting him physically. I've spoken to him many a times. This is one incredible human being, and it's been a long time coming. Guys, if you're watching this show right now, you'll be glued. Tommy Cairo is up next.
We shall ECWU in a second.
Sweet Caroline, pop, pop, pop. The times never seem so good. So good, so good, so good. I incline, pop, pop, pop.
Sir?
Ah.
Manscaped?
Uh-huh.
Have you tried the new equipment that's been sent?
I'm afraid because it says weed whacker. I'm scared.
Maven, Manscaped, what are you thinking about
Love
Manscaped,
it.
dude?
Love it.
What do you use it for?
Necessity. What don't I use it for? Put it this way. The only hair I have on my entire body is these eyebrows.
Yeah.
That you see. These caterpillars racing to the middle of my nose. That's it.
That is it.
That's all I have. And that's all I want.
That's the
So Manscaped is a
You-
must.
We were talking before the show. There's nothing worse than just hair.
Yeah.
Right? Hair on a woman, hair on a man. It's just bad.
Absolutely. And it's the one thing that the older I get, it starts growing more in unwanted areas.
Absolutely.
I hate it.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Just going to go out there.
Oh, boy.
Go for it.
You're doing a deed.
Yes.
Again, I don't want you to have to admit this because we, as men, we try not to admit this. But if you're going to go do the deed on a woman, would you rather have her be hairless or a little hair, racing stripe, or
Racing stripe.
full retro bush?
Racing stripe.
Retro Bush is out.
Yes, thank you.
Retro Bush is out.
Yeah.
I don't mind a small, well manicured landing strip. every now and then, if it's completely, and I'm talking like baby's ass bald, then I start. Where is that pedophilia line? I don't want to
Wow.
wander into that.
That's
Very
very like
interesting.
that.
I never thought about that. You're a
Wow.
smart dude. Holy shit.
So if the landing strip is clean enough for the plane to go in smoothly, you're cool with that.
If the landing strip has like I said, well manicured,
Yeah,
you can see both sides. It's not
Like blinking lights on both sides of that
I
landing?
just don't. I don't want. I don't want the shrubbery going off into unwanted areas on that as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Oh, look
but-
what you found. Ooh.
I got to be all honest though. Hey, the older I get though, I don't think I can be as
I found it! I found
Have
it!
you ever gone down there and like just like she slowly brings down the underwear? Then
What is
retro? Just,
Absolutely.
You're like, whoa!
Wow,
Yeah,
like,
I'm
like
46,
it
of
pops
course.
out?
Do you like walk out or what do you do?
No, I muster through. I muster up the courage to get
He's
through.
a trooper. He's a trooper. Gotta give him an A.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
hear you.
There you
Listen,
go.
I couldn't
Super
say.
Bush.
I couldn't say. Well, if you have the same beliefs as Maven does, Manscaped could help you.
Absolutely.
The weed whacker.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I may have to, go in a room, close the door, and hang out with the weed whacker for a little while.
Yeah, I think you're a retro guy, aren't you?
I like 70s adult films, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
but
only
with that,
Ron
we're going to take
Jeremy,
a quick
Batman.
commercial break and we'll be
Anyway.
back with this wrestling icon, Maven.
We will see you in a drop kick second.
Drop kick. All right, welcome back to the world's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. How's it feel to be the world's?
It feels proper. It feels correct.
How about gratifying?
It feels right. Of course it's gratifying.
Here he is at the couch, Tommy Cairo. Tommy,
Thank you.
how are you, buddy?
I'm great. It's great to be here, to meet you guys, Jimmy and Mike. And it was a long time coming. We've been communicating for a long time. I had the show going
You had
for
the
a
show
little
on
while,
the channel, yeah?
you know, and then things changed, and I wound up having to deal with a situation that I never thought I would have to. And,
Well, we're gonna go, Tommy. We're gonna go a little reverse, right? So most people would probably start in your origins. I want to start where we are today. You drove here from New Jersey, took the time out of your busy schedule. If you could you stand up and maybe
Sure.
show the people?
Yep. Let me hit the robotic activation.
There you go.
Okay.
So if
Will you see me if I walk a little?
anyone could see,
Good
there
job,
he is.
Abe.
All right.
All right, Tommy. So if anybody doesn't realize, Tommy now has a prosthesis leg, right?
Yep.
So let's go. Let's
Okay.
tell the fans
Okay.
what happened to you, Tommy Cairo, last summer
I
till
will.
now.
So I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to have worked hard enough between my wife and I to finally have a little place that we could go to that we didn't have to rent out to offset the cost and all of that. And we wound up with a beautiful place in a gated community with a private beach down in Virginia. So I'm down there by myself. Son was in school at the time. My wife's a realtor, so very hard for her to get away. So I was down there and I'm sitting on the beach and I'm still not happy because I'm a worrier. And I'm thinking, you know, my son's in school, but that's not a good enough excuse because when he's off of school, he's home. And even if it's only a little bit of time, I should be there. So I packed up my shit and I went home. But right before that happened, I had gone in the water. And I only went into waist deep. Okay, this is the Delaware Bay. I'm sorry, this is the Chesapeake Bay. No different than if you go in the water in New Jersey in the summer in the heat, you got bacteria, the whole 9 yards. Well, I felt like I got stung. And I remember being stung by grabbing the fins of a fish in Florida. And it was like the same feeling, like a numbness. So when I looked at my leg, when I got out and sat on a chair before I decided to go home, it was a area about from the top of my knee to the inside of my groin, and it looked like some kind of state. It was just a thin outline, nothing in the middle. That was it. Well, you know,
But you could see a line.
you could see it. Yes.
So are you like, whoa, what is this?
No.
Or- no.
I'm like we all are. Yes. When you go to a doctor, dermatologist, and he can't identify exactly what it is, contact dermatitis. And what do? You put a little triple antibiotic on it, and you go on your way. Well, that developed into a whole week that I had sepsis shock and didn't even know it was walking around. My wife bringing me to the emergency room, and that quick I ended up, they had to take my legs, my toes had turned black, they had to take my leg. I have 8 inches below my knee still, which gives me the mechanics of the knee. And that area that we talked about, which my wife kind of like, debated, oh, I don't think you got it from, whatever it is, that thing that I got in the water developed into the largest wound. I had plastic surgery on this. I had to wear a wound vac and a whole 9 yards, and it hit different areas. And if you know that pneumococcal, a flesh-eating disease, which gives you the sepsis, it doesn't discriminate. It can hit you in 4 different areas that aren't connected to each other. So I got my foot, my toes, chopped it off. Then I had an area here and this big area here. On top of that, because I was down between rehab and a hospital, 74 days on my back, I wound up with a bed wound on my butt, which lasted healing-wise as long as everything else.
But I think you're almost understating it, Chris. Us who were friends with you and people even closer to you, you were close to death.
Okay, so my wife had to fill in the blanks for me. So I go into the hospital, an emergency room, and all this just moves so quickly.
Well,
so,
let me just ask you a question. You see this line, all of a sudden, are you seeing things happening to your leg that you're like, I
No.
need to go to a hospital?
No,
What makes you go to the
My
hospital?
wife.
Your wife.
I'm taking you to the emergency room. I don't remember that. A week before, I'm taking my son to youth group, and I said to him, I think I know what's wrong with my foot. I think I sprained my ankle. That's the last thing I remember. And my son said he heard me talking to myself in a room. I had sepsis in my system for a week. I was walking around with it.
Wow.
Poisoned. The doctor says that's inhuman. All right. Liver failure, kidney failure, on a ventilator, AFib, sepsis with sepsis shock, and psychotic episode. I told everybody I was going to kill them. I told my wife I would kill her. I told my daughter, I said, would your pastor approve this? I thought I was being committed. So I do remember bits of that when I was in recovery after surgery. I told the big guy there that I was going to come back and shoot him. I told my wife I was going to shoot her. Completely out of it. So I got Kevlar mitts on to not harm myself because I was violent, psychotic. Well, I'm thinking I'm trying to rip through them with my fingernails, right? And nobody will talk to me. My family had left. No water, no food, okay? I said, you know what? I just figured out they're not trying to have me committed. This is hell. I'm in hell, okay? Then I had this vision that I was sent back to the door where you go to heaven by the devil, who appeared with long fingers and just weird. This is like, I don't know if this is like part of the psychosis or whatever, or if I almost died and I came back. Don't know. Fact of the matter is, I should have been dead. 65 and still alive. So my wife gets the word that your husband may not make the night. So she contacts my friend, Paulie Bycow, equalizer from ECW, my heart, my top guy. And she says, they told me he may not make the night. He said, don't you realize who's laying in that bed? You've been married to him all these years. That's the fucking Iron Man. He's a tough son of a bitch. He ain't gonna die. 3 days later, this doctor worked on me like a fucking animal. I wake up to an Indian doctor standing down looking at me, and I love them guys because they're so smart. And he said, all your levels are back to normal. What? I didn't even know what he was talking about. Right. All that had to be filled in by my wife. So I was walking around poisoned, should have been dead 5 different ways, and here I am.
Thank God.
Lost my leg, but it's either this or 6 feet under.
Now, did they figure out what they think happened in the water that day?
No. I somehow got the flesh-eating disease. I believe that whatever stung me, of course, was infected because it's in the water.
Right.
And it's July, and it's hot, right? So all the right conditions, and I'm a diabetic. So to tell you how cautious I'm being, I went back to Virginia for the first time in almost a year, okay? And I was walking, I couldn't go until I got my leg. I got my leg a week before, was new at walking on it. and I had steps there I knew I had to negotiate. So I couldn't go until I knew I could walk. I got the leg, I walked up the stairs, I did all that. I got stung on my knee, on my leg, and it blew up and it looked infected. I went right to the doctor and I said, I ain't taking no chances. He put me on an antibiotic and I've been treated. So this is what I have to do. You know, I was always like, what are you doing with your hands all the time with the whatever, bacterial? Now I know. I don't want anything foreign getting into my body. I'll never swim in any body of water again. My tub and my shower, and that's it. You know, I'm not taking any chances.
They weren't able to determine what stung you?
No.
That's amazing
But
to
the
me.
shit moves so quickly.
Yeah.
Right? And he said, the fact that you walked around that long, he said, well, we're not surprised because you're alive. When I went to all 3 doctors right after the amputation, they treated me like I was walking on water. They're like, you don't understand. We didn't ever expect to see you in this office. And last week I had to go to the guy that actually cut my leg, and I walked to him across the room and hugged him. And he said, man, I can't believe it. He goes,
Let me ask you this, Tommy. You're an athlete, and we're going to get into that whole athletic background from your bodybuilding to becoming a pro wrestler. What kind of emotions do you feel, right? Because you're kind of getting through it, right? And now you know you're going to lose a part of your body. What are your emotions before it's going to happen? And then what are your emotions after it happens?
I don't know. I just accepted it 100%. And I think the reason I accepted it is I knew it wouldn't be that big of a challenge because I was crippled before I lost my foot. I had to be carried to the table at the ECW arena at a convention. So this is not a far departure. All I sought to do was sit, walk short distance, sit. I'm doing that now. But at the same time, I have to try to correct my back and my hips while I'm learning how to walk. That's tough. But I never thought about this. Here's I can sum it up. People said to me, "Are you mad? Are you angry?" Because I'm a Christian, but this did happen. I had a revelation. I said, "This is what I thought in my head. You thought you fucking made it. Big man, Tommy Cairo, Iron Man, did everything your way, against the system, and you prevailed. So guess what? I'm going to give you a little something else to challenge you because you're still not happy. You're sitting at the beach at your private community that you live in, and you're still not happy. So I got to give you something to come back from. Bam! I'm taking your leg. I need you to do something. I need you to figure out why I kept you. And I have figured that out, and that's a big reason why I'm here. And we'll speak further about that because I want to leave this earth having made every effort I could to help the wrestling business. Not for myself, not for my gain. And if I put the whole thing together, and it just is in someone's possession for later use, and it gets used after I'm gone, hey, you know what? We don't know what to do to get this shit straightened out, but I remember Tommy Cairo put a program together to restructure pro wrestling. Let's look at it. Oh, you know what? This sounds great. Let's try it. Bam. Because, I've been around this since I'm a kid. I was a fan at 5 years old. There's a picture of me in Florida at the pool at 2 years old. In my hand is a bodybuilder magazine that you can see with the guy on the front and a lat spread. And that's how I won some of my competitions. That was my signature pose. So the seed was planted early.
Would you say that you were toughened up by wrestling, or were you just tough to begin with, and wrestling was the perfect thing for you?
Wrestling wasn't tough enough for me.
There you go.
But I worked with guys like Manny Fernandez, so I got my fix. Okay, because we beat the shit out of each other. Leave nothing to chance. No phantom strikes or anything that I got to sell that I can't feel. I could sell it because it's real. I got hit by a chair when he did the flying burrito. He had a chair in his hand. So the cameras came in. It was some local. And my head, the bump on my head grew as they were talking to me to the size of a freaking baseball on my head. So they were like, this is real, folks, But I want to tell you this. So people wanted to know if I was mad or angry about this. having to be in this situation. So I said, well, at night, after I take my leg off and I look over at it, just like in the morning before I put it on, I look over at it. I don't look at it and say, do you believe this shit? My leg is gone. I got to wear this fucking thing? No. I look over at it as my passport, as my vehicle, okay? Because I barely walked before. I'm going to learn to walk better, fix my back, and walk with this and have no issues. But I tell you what I won't do. I won't hide it. I will probably never wear long pants again because it's a badge of honor. And somebody said, well, I heard you can get to the point where nobody will even notice that you have it. That's not going to help. I can't help anybody. They got to see it so they can approach me if it's something that they want to talk. Well, listen, my brother just lost his leg, or another amputee that's got it done early, later than me. I got some experience now. I could tell you the pitfalls. I could tell you the attitude you have to acquire. But no, I have no ill will and no, feeling sorry for myself and being mad. Being mad has to be over because I've been mad most of my life.
As many of us are, and we're going to get to that real quick before you get to the next question, Pharaoh. Little Patty just wants to know, how long ago did this happen to you?
The amputation was in September of last year.
And that we'd say August was the bite, right?
Yes.
Okay.
July was the bite.
Gotcha.
Mike, if you don't mind, I want to go a little off script. Tommy, can you give any advice to those people who struggle with faith? Because I'm finding you extremely inspirational. Is there anything you would say to people who are struggling with faith?
I'll tell you this. I know it's amazing the position I'm in. And I've done everything in my power to take myself out over the years. And the fact that I can pray about something and unbelievably some of it happens like before you can even think about it. Bam! It's solved. So what I say to people who don't have faith and you're looking for something in your life to have, a purpose, try it. Pray. Pray, wait, believe and wait. Pray, believe and wait. But you have to be able to pick up on the blessings because they may not come in the exact form that
you expect.
Right. You may have to use what he gave you to get to that as a vehicle.
Right.
But he will give you what you need to accomplish that.
That's beautiful. Okay, so let's go to the beginning. Tell us about your mom and dad and growing up in New Jersey.
Okay. Very easy. Italian-American neighborhood. Everybody except for the Giordano's who were on waste disposal had those small Cape Cods that they bought for $14,000 in 1971.
Gotcha.
Okay? And what happened was my group was named the Cellar Dwellers. And why? The Italian families that had the oldest child was a son. As soon as the new kids came along, the son ended up in the basement because there was no more room. And they had to put something in the attic. So my parents did that. My two sisters went up there. There was only 2 bedrooms. And they threw me downstairs when they wanted the second bedroom for a family, a TV room.
Right.
And I was fine with that because I would throw up in the sink and pee in the trap when I would come home from my exploits of bouncing and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Side door entrance, sneak girls down. My father saw many girls coming up the steps as he was going down to get his work clothes in the morning. So we were, all relegated to the cellars. And I'm thinking on it now, I had a girl come down in the winter and she said, you can see your breath down here. So I put a little heater up one day. My father was like, that uses a lot of power. I had bad hay fever. My father made me pull the weeds. Okay. I didn't like heights. He put me on the high side of the house. We were on a hill. Paint the house. Shaking up there. Right. There was no affection, no love. My mother was a maniac. Screaming maniac. It's funny how years later, I really held my father responsible because he was gone Monday, Wednesday, Friday, gym, Thursday, Kiwanis. So he left us with her because he didn't want to deal with it. So in the end, I didn't blame my mother and I didn't have any ill will because once I had to go on some medication to calm myself, I turn her on to the idea of maybe going to seek some help. Look, back in the day, mother's little helper. She didn't have that. Knowing that once she took it, it really made a difference. I couldn't hold it against her because I suffered from the same thing. I held my father responsible because he left us there. She would hit. She would holler from her pillow, muffled sound. Put that orange juice away. Like she knew you were drinking. Orange juice was a big deal. It was only for breakfast, and you could only have a little. In my house, because of that, you could have unlimited fucking orange juice. Unfortunately, nobody really likes it in my house. But I tried to undo some of the things that were done to me.
Well, let's stick with mom a little bit first. Was mom physically abusive towards you
Yes.
and your sisters?
No.
Just you.
Never. Just me.
Did that make you feel like she hated you?
Well, she tried to smother me. So, I just think she was out of control. I don't think she could control her emotions, and I must have been a handful. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was, very active.
Not worthy of smothering.
No. I brought that up to her years ago, and she just freaked out, denied it. You don't forget that. So later on in years, I was getting some counseling, and I tried to get to the root of my claustrophobia. Well, my mother tried to smother me. My father's best friend held me in the corner of the pool underwater, and my cousins held my feet and my hands and tried to pour salt into my eyes. I used to get these nightmares that these puffy white things were closing in on me. Never connected it. Never put it together.
So as we get into your life, we could see where the start of some of your problems were coming, stem from your mom and dad. What did dad do to you?
Dad, when I was eager as a child to help, would never let me. And then I resented it when he wanted me later on to do stuff. I was like, you didn't give a shit about me when I was a kid, that you could have let me make a couple strokes with the paintbrush. All I remember is him with a cigarette in his mouth with the one eye closed from the smoke, with neglect, we called it, on the end of the thing hanging off. And he would work, and I remember him getting up and hitting his head on a shelf that he had put up and just like freaking out, over nothing.
Did you ever go to dad and say, do you know what was going on between me and mom, and you let this happen? Did you ever have that conversation?
No, I didn't. He was only physical with me twice. Once when I cut class, and I don't know what the other time was. I got caught smoking cigarettes. He hit me. I saw stars. But no, my father just he evaded the situation. We were left with it. My sisters were okay. Our one sister was so scared. My mother couldn't find any knives, and she went up, and somehow she was cleaning, went under the bed, and there was like 15 knives under the bed. So I don't know what she dealt with. I think we had one sister that was the star out of the three of us. That was the middle, just younger than me. Then my sister Laura, who suffered in a different way. She suffered from neglect. Okay, my sister Bonnie was like the star. Come to find out that later on she said some things that just pushed me away. When I was closing on my house in Virginia, I showed my brother-in-law the picture, and his question was, "Is that yours now?" And I know enough to know him. I read through it. It's like, well, it could still get denied. He could still lose it. He may not get it. How's he going to get it? How does he have that? And we don't. That's not instead of like, hey, I'd love to figure out how you did it. What'd you do? Well, I did this with the mortgage, and I refined. I could tell you because I don't make no great amount of money that it was easy. I used my head. And when nobody could find a way to make it work, the realtor, I said, do this. And they said, yeah, that's it. That's the answer. And it was rebuy my current house for what I have left on it, which is only less than 10 years, right? And take no money and just put it all together. I ended up with a second property at the number that I said would be feasible. If I could do something for $700 a month, and that's what it is. My insurance and my taxes down there are $800 a year. 2.5 blocks away from the beach. Somebody said, well, that's where you got stung. Jersey's the same thing. A guy got stung in the Barnegat Bay or got cut on a trap, got infected. It took all four, everything, 2 arms and 2 legs. That's all. The guy's got nothing. Like, that's a recipe for a noose. Like, I made it through this, but I wouldn't make it through that.
That's a tough one. Is mom and dad still with us?
No, I lost them both, not just during all of this craziness. I lost them both.
Wow.
And two cousins. One who was just retired, walked out to get his mail and got run down by an elderly man.
Strange question on my part. Mom and dad pass. You're going through what you're going through. What are your emotions on that? Are you indifferent?
Regarding my parents?
Yes.
I'll put it this way. They were so insignificant in adding to my kids' life or my life that it's just like I haven't seen them. Like, they're not dead. I haven't seen them. Because that was the norm. We didn't see them all that much. And they didn't do anything to, foster a relationship. Never said, let me come and pick up the kids, take them for the day. Never, I could ask them and maybe get them to help me out, but it was always unsolicited,
Do you think that the lack of support and emotional love from your family might have gravitated you even closer to your relationship with God?
Oh, yes, without a doubt. When my mother would go to work at a place called National Yeast in Belleville, she would leave me on Fairway Avenue with my grandmother. And I always just putz around, do stuff, go outside, never had any trouble, deliver old newspapers to the neighborhood. And so my mother would come and pick me up, and she would always ask, how was he? And the answer would always be the same. He was as good as gold. And that stuck in my head, and I knew I was connected to God. I knew I was a child of God. I knew there was that about me. That was something special about me, which covered me when things were horrible. I always had that to fall back on.
How about bodybuilding? Not to switch gears so quickly, but when did you decide to get into bodybuilding? Was it when the picture of you at the 2 years old with the magazine in your hand?
That was the seed. Did you see the picture of me real skinny lifting the weights over my head, black and white?
I think they're in there. They're floating
probably
around.
be up there.
Yep.
Okay, so in my town, we had an Olympic champion by the name of Phil Grapaldi. Competed in the Olympics. He won all the stuff in the United States, but of course, didn't do great in the Olympics. Did good in the World Championships and all the national stuff. His name was Phil Grapaldi. So because of him, we had a free gym in my town. It was in the stadium. So the stadium's got, the back is like this, the front's like this, where all the bleachers are, and underneath there's some space. Well, that's where our gym was. It was a hole. There was no really, the floor had holes in it. There was gutters on the inside to catch the water. There were no mirrors or anything like that. And almost everything was plate loaded or barbells or dumbbells. That was it. And I remember sitting in the parking lot of the high school, looking across the field at the stadium where I was going to be tonight in the gym, and this kid's in my ear about a party or a dance. He goes, did you hear me? I said, what? He goes, are you going to the dance tonight? I said, what dance? He goes, right here tonight, there's a dance. It's every Friday. I go, bro, you know where I'll be? Up there in the stadium lifting weights. And I was so in love with it and so proud of it that when they took a picture for the local newspaper of the members of the gym, it was me and the young kid across the street, Tony Castelli. They had a barbell at our feet and all the guys standing up. And we were smaller, so we kneeled down and we had our hands on the bar. Like, I got my hand on this, man. Like, it was amazing. So I was schooled and brought into the world of Olympic-style weightlifting, which was in competition to clean and jerk and the snatch, and years ago they had the press too. But they determined by the 72 Olympics, they eliminated the press because it was so similar to the jerk and it was hard to judge. Guys were bending their back. So I competed actually before when the press was still in. I was on an Olympic lifting platform at 12 years old. 12, 13, 14. Bro, if you know the weights I was at, I think at 14 I was like 114 pound class, lifting these big weights. And then I got sent to Oklahoma from the town. A good friend of mine, Renee, who's no longer with us, the Kiwanis and the Rotary Club paid for our trip, and we went out to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I got a bronze medal. But what was happening was I was a big bodybuilding fan, and I didn't like the way the Olympic lifting training made your body look. It gave you big traps, big triceps, not so big biceps, big thighs. You wear a pair of pants, your waist would be all cinched up and the pants would be skin tight on the legs. So I didn't like that. It wasn't balanced, and I always loved bodybuilding. So once that I left, weightlifting, 1982, I'm in the audience of the Mr. New Jersey contest and what they call the pre-judging, which is in the daytime, and then at night is the big show. That's where everything is judged. They already know where you're placed by the time the night show
By the
comes.
time the real show
Right.
comes, yeah.
So I'm sitting there. We smuggled beers in and everything. I'm still working out. I'm starting to use a bodybuilding. So I seen a kid come out. Gerard was his name. And I go, he placed like fourth. I go, I know him, and I could beat him right now with this body. They're like, yeah, you're sitting. I said, I'm coming here next year, and I'm going to fucking go in this and win the Mr. New Jersey. They're like, you're sitting here drinking beers. You never competed in bodybuilding, and you're going to win the most prestigious? I said, yes. Started on my quest, trained with blinders on. All the other gyms had guys that they, locally that were going in, and we would travel to the local gyms to work out. This place had better leg equipment. We go there, and I used to make the rounds, and there's all this scuttlebutt going on, right? I even went to see a guy to help me out, and he had a guy there that he was training that was going in. And when I saw the guy, I'm like, he looks like fucking Hercules. He's like 3 inches shorter than me and the same body weight. Fast forward to the Mr. New Jersey. Gus Salerno is one of the judges, and after my routine, I came out to watch the other guys, and he goes, you're going to win this, right? I go, don't even fuck around, bro. I go, I'll be lucky if I get a trophy. And I watched the kid pose, who was my main competition, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to beat this guy. So comes time for the awards. 5th place from Stowe's Gym, blah, blah, blah. 4th place from Bodybuilding Emporium, so-and so. 3rd place from New York metropolitan area, blah, blah, blah. 2nd place, and they didn't mention my name. And still I'm standing there, I'm not understanding. And in 1st place from Giordano's Gym, Tommy Cairo. And I'm like, I'm looking. And they're like, go! They push me. I go out, and my friend was running the music and everything, so he waited till played my music, and I got awarded. Beat 35 of the best guys in the state, some of them returning multiple years in a row just to crack the top 5. And the best part about this is I was supposed to be a light heavyweight, and I was going to a place called the HERE Institute where they dunk you, and they do your basal metabolic rate. And he said, all right, at 186 pounds, you'll be safe. If you go below that, you're going to start infringing on 3% that's necessary for normal body functions. You start going below that, anything can happen. So I get down to that 186. He tells me, you're good to go. Then I find out that a guy by the name of Casey Kacharik, who had 8 years training and competing experience on me, trying to re-qualify to go into nationals, coming to the Mr. New Jersey last minute. I'm like, I can't beat him. And I don't know if I could beat anybody who's second to him. So I'm dropping down to 176. Like, how are you going to do that? In the sauna, out of the sauna. Eat a little, try to pee. The whole thing. I had a weigh in, and I weighed like a quarter pound over. I did what I used to do in wrestling. I went in the showers with a fucking plastic bag on, put everything on hot, sweated it out, spit, cut my nails, do whatever, right? I get back, thing goes right in the middle. I make the class. That's why I won. I was superior in my conditioning, like ripped. And you couldn't deny me, because when you saw that guy pose by himself, you're like, wow. But then when you saw me, you were like, well, that's the fucking anatomy chart right there. So if the judging criteria is doing the right thing, you're going to win.
So I always pumping iron, right? I always envision like you with your father, like Ferrigno was with his father. Was your father involved in your wrestling?
Yes.
So does this bond you then? This not wrestling, I'm sorry, bodybuilding. This bonds you two together?
Well, that's a good question. With the Olympic lifting, he didn't train me, and then the bodybuilding, he was all for it. It was the wrestling that he didn't get behind until the guys at work were saying, are you going to the Robert Treat Hotel to see your kid tonight? And he's like, what? It's like, yeah, he's scheduled to wrestle and we're all going, So when other people, extolled my virtues, then he got on board. You know what I mean? And he couldn't deny me, but I have a picture of me and the guy who placed ahead of me because of politics at the Mr. America in 1985. My lower back is like 2 slabs, and it's a daisy chain, they call it. My father's, put my oil on, and I'm putting the oil on the guy in front of me. So I put that up to say who's got the superior. I mean, from the back you could see, and I had him from the front too. But yes, that was my father. Was there through all of that. Flew out to the Miss America. I had a girl with me. He left. He was whatever. My father would follow me home. In Newark when I lived in Newark. I had a girl with me. He knew everything I did. He showed up at every club that I worked in to make sure, I was safe, and he knew what the surroundings were like. So yes, he did. But if I had not done anything that made him proud, I don't think I would have had his support. All I remember him saying is, you don't stick with anything. And honestly, everything I've ever achieved was done with people who told me, how are you going to do that? Everybody wants to go to Japan. How are you going to go to Japan? When? Everybody wants to win in bodybuilding. How are you going to do that? The kid in the gym that doesn't compete looks better than you. Did it. I'm better. He's got no background. I got it all. So, I can't be denied it. I'm in many arenas. And that's why, like tomorrow night, I'm writing a tribute to my brother-in-law. Grandfather, brother-in-law, uncle, me, all in a union. I got to write him a tribute. And, I forgot my point. Damn. Anyway,
Where do you get all this confidence from? Because it certainly wasn't your parents who was installing this thing. Where does this come from?
having to look at what you accomplished. They say when you have feelings of uselessness and so on and so forth, logically, you have to look at your life for real. And if it doesn't line up with how you feel, you got to rethink your whole thing. It's like, you did all of this. You know what helped me out of the funk I was in? I was sick for 90 days, what I think was COVID. I didn't get the shot. I wouldn't. And I was putting up all that stuff in my room, my man cave. Every day when I got done, and I sat on the edge of the bed and I looked at what I had done, and I said, geez, this is like unbelievable. It's like a roller coaster ride of a kaleidoscope and a vortex all in one, circus-like, the whole 9 yards, athletic, overcoming obstacles all along the way. And I always did everything with that, okay, I can't do it. And everything I did, there was always somebody who told, and it was usually somebody close to me who told me I couldn't do it.
And that stings even more. It makes you want to do it.
I'm going to do it even if I don't want to.
But we're going to get into it more. But the one thing that happens seems that you force yourself an achievement and then you destroyed it.
Could
you
be.
went out of your way to destroy it, and we'll get into it.
Well, let me just tell you this so you get an idea. So I'm 17 years old, and I live across the street from the high school. So I don't have to drive. But I have a buddy, my best friend that I competed with, that's no longer with us, who lived across town. He had a Custom S, it was called. It was a Pontiac. And he would pick me up every day, and we would go get coffee and then go to school. Get high, of course. Well, at first I didn't. I wasn't smoking pot. I wasn't doing any drugs. I did a little drinking at, your friend's house. This week, your parents' liquor closet. Next week, mine. Mix everything. Get sick. Be slobbering on each other. I called you an asshole. I'm sorry. Went through all of that. And I would not do any drugs. So every day he would pull up and he'd open up his ashtray and it'd be 4 or 5 green joints. Remember the reefer roller papers? They were green. And I'd say, no thanks. So there's one particular day, I'm getting ready to leave. My mother's screaming from the pillow. And what I would do to counteract it, I couldn't scream at her out loud. So I would go like this, I hate you, I fucking hate you. And I left the house like that. And I got in the car and he opened up that ashtray and I fucking grabbed a joint and I lit it up. And I've done other things which I don't do anymore. But pot has been in my life since I'm 17. I quit for 1 year. Lest we be persecuted any further. We've been hiding, shucking and jiving for years.
Preach.
Okay?
Yep.
Leave us the fuck alone.
Yeah.
You're an alcoholic. You sat in my yard and drank 3 fingers of whiskey.
Thank you.
And when you asked me how I deal with my pain, and I said marijuana, you freaked out.
Yeah.
I said, you got some nerve. I said, you're going to drive my street now drunk. You alcoholics are all the
Well,
same.
I'm gonna have to disagree with you there because whiskey.
I love you. Anyway.
Whiskey's very good for you, especially.
Whiskey's a great for you,
Listen,
especially Jim Beam.
Yeah, but listen.
That's
listen,
right.
And you're not an alcoholic if you drink lots of Jim Beam.
That's
You're
correct.
just a whiskey appreciator. But as you
here's
were
the
saying, Mr.
difference.
Cairo.
Control, at the graduation trip that we went to, all the alcoholics got caught with shit and were banished to their room, couldn't do anything.
If they had learned the fine art of balance, little Jim Beam, a little
Yeah.
doobie,
We were
a
all
little
quiet.
healthy dinner.
Yep.
I mean, what are we talking here?
Listen, somebody said this. You could put 100
Balance.
people in the room
Yeah.
that don't know each other and start serving alcohol.
Right.
Look, likely somebody could die. Put same amount of potheads, they'll be taking selfies together. Everything's cool, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't want to be persecuted anymore.
I
said to
agree
my
with
wife,
that. I do agree
Don't
with that.
ever say to me again, "It smells."
Right.
I get tired of getting you wine. I got to go out and get your wine, but you got a problem with my weed. Okay, there's something wrong there.
All right.
Tell me where you want me to go.
No.
We're just having a little joke about something. I totally 1,000,000% agree with you. However, I will say this, and it's ironic, but when we first met, what did we bond over? The Jim Beam bottle in my parents' closet.
That is
Wow,
correct.
how apropos.
That is
So we
correct.
became friends that way, and I had other friends who became friends with the green rolling papers. So.
Did you drink right out of that big bottle?
Absolutely.
You know what? You know the thing we got around my people?
Yeah.
Pop, pop, pop. That's the noise that's made by the air.
Yeah.
Pop, 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 pop.
There you go.
You have
you
it-
go.
you-
That's
you
a
when you
lovely.
pop up-
That's a lovely sound, by the way.
Yeah.
So, after all, this is somewhat a wrestling show. Let's ask, what made you decide to get into pro wrestling after the bodybuilding deal?
All right. So when I was a kid, my uncle was a wrestling fan, and I would watch it on TV from Washington D.C. Ray Morgan, big heavyweight wrestling from Washington. And back then you had like guys that I didn't know until later that really were mid-card guys, but to me, I saw them as the stars. You had Bull Ortega, TNT Tank Morgan, King Curtis, and Baron Cicluna, who became a good friend of mine. So you had all these guys, and this is what happened. One day, it was a tag team match they had announced. Bruno's kayfabe cousin, which was Antonio Pugliese, a.k.a. Tony Parisi, a tag team against Baron Cicluna. Okay? So come time for the match, they announce Pugliese. Pugliese comes out, and he's in the ring with the heels. They announce Bruno. No Bruno. Then the guy is handed a note, and he says, well, folks, I'm sorry to say, Bruno has missed his connection, and he won't be here tonight. So now everybody's like, well, what's going to happen? The heels start beating down Pugliese, put the boots to him. All of a sudden, Ray Morgan, what? Oh my God, it's Bruno. Bruno comes in with like his shirt open, something hanging out of his suitcase.
Yep.
His tie's down. He drops the suitcase. He gets in the ring. They're back to back. They fight off the heels. I'm screaming. My mother comes running in the room. What happened? Bruno. She goes, my God, you're driving me nuts. Now I'll give her this credit.
She didn't
said,
say, wait a minute, is that a glass of orange juice next to you?
Yeah.
I told you no orange
Put it
juice.
back. Put it back. There's a funnel in the drawer.
Go ahead,
Funnel
Tom.
in the drawer. And then clean the funnel when you're done. So she did a good thing. She said, let me get a hold of your uncle, and I'm going to let him take you to the matches.
There you go.
I go to Newark Armory, 10 years old.
Wow.
Now, how I know it was 68, I figured it out by looking at, in the back of the wrestling magazines, they have pictures of the covers of past issues.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the show being sold that night was a magazine, and it said on it, it had Brower's opponent all bleeding. It said, so-and-so signs Brower's death certificate in hot blood. And I, what do you call it? A magnifying glass, I found it, and it said, February 68. I'm like, holy shit, okay, that was it. But I was 10 years old. Bruno, I don't remember who he wrestled. And after it was over, my uncle, who's all 5'4", puts me on his shoulder, and as Bruno's exiting, I pat him on the back.
Mm.
And I guess that was around his, level, being on my uncle's shoulder. And I swore that sweat flew on my magazine from Bruno. So I was hooked. Bruno hooked me. There's no doubt about it. So fast forward, I remember the first time I took the VHS and stopped it where I could see Bruno with the blade. When Koloff had him in a corner and his boot on Bruno's chest, Bruno decided to get color. I don't know why. He didn't hit the post or anything, but he was trying to put Koloff's boot, replace it on his head so they wouldn't see him. It was so ridiculous. But nobody knew, They were cheering for Bruno. They didn't know. And those people were rabid. They repeated the same thing with Pedro, who drew almost just as well because of the Puerto Rican demographic, and also the Italians were on board. But that made me, my uncle bringing me to those matches just solidified. Then I started going locally to the matches. I met Gary Capetta, who said to me, I was hanging around waiting for the ring truck because I knew that they would come early. And he goes, what are you doing, guys? I said, I'm waiting for the ring truck, and whoever shows up, oh, you guys are fans. I said, yeah, Gary. Oh, you know me. Of course, you do all the commentary. He said, I'll tell you what, you got one friend that likes wrestling? I said, yeah. He goes, come back and meet me at this. I'll be at this door, and I'll let you in. Let me in through the locker room to get to the auditorium. And it was like my high school, I was like, this is so cool. Hi, guys. And I knew enough to just walk. And, it was like I had seen when Freddie Blassie held the door open for me at South Mountain Arena when I changed my shift when I worked there. Okay? And held up, he had his Halliburton, and there's those benches in the hallway where you put your skates on, rubber floor, and he put his foot up, and he held the door open. I looked in, and it was exactly how it used to be. Guys in their boxers, smoking cigars, playing, cards, maybe drinking some beer. That was it. And that's all I wanted to know, because I already knew it was a work. I didn't care about seeing the matches, because if I go to 2 matches locally, the 2 first guys, the opener, the curtain jerkers, they did the same match. They just switched the ending. So I'm like, I don't care. So that's when I stood up and went up in the stands, and I knew there was a void between the curtain if you went up on top. Nobody went up there because there wasn't enough people to fill it. They were all down close.
Right.
Johnny Rods is standing down there. I hollered down, Java Rook. He fucking looks up at me in shock, and then he cracks a smile. Nobody knew he was Java Rook.
Right.
But I bought so many magazines. One report was Sunnyside Gardens, and the other one was where he was a star in Los Angeles.
Like Cow Palace or something.
No, it was the Olympic Auditorium.
Olympic Auditorium, there you go.
So you become this huge wrestling fan. You know all the inside stuff, right, off these magazines. So at what point are you like, I'm done with bodybuilding, I'm going to make a run at becoming a pro wrestler?
Easy question. I got done with the Mr. America in 1985, and that's when I started looking around and thinking, what could I do? And then I'm not sure if 86 had hit when I actually broke in, but it was right around that time. So what had happened was I saw an article about the Eastern Wrestling Alliance, and they were located in Seawarren, New Jersey. I said, let me take a shot. Because in the old days, I used to look at the clips that were advertising wrestling that they would print, and I would call the numbers just to say, what's the card this week, and that kind of thing. So I said, let me take a shot. I called information when you used to do that. I said, can you give me the address, the number of EWA in Seawarren? They gave me the number. Called the number, somebody answered.
You like it shocked.
I'm like, wow. They blew me off so quickly. I was like, all right, fuck them. I found out when they were running a show at the Wet Banana Sports Complex, which unbeknownst to me at the time is owned by Gary Capetta's family at the, not sure what the name of the pier that it was on, but he had this, Ted Petty's, I didn't know at the time, ring set up for these shows they were running. So in the old days, how I broke into the business was I'll tell you the people maybe later, but one of the key people was, Gary. And when Tom Ferdini came around when I was training, hey kid, come over here. I'm in the ring working out. I said, what? He goes, take this number and call me next week. I'll give you the directions. I said, to where? East Lyme, Connecticut. I said, for what? He goes, would you get hit in the head already? You're going to wrestle. I go, I'm in 2 weeks in training. He goes, I already watched you. You come up to East Lyme, Connecticut. I'm like, now I got to get gear. I don't have any gear.
But you got the look. You could tell you got the look.
Just came off to Mr. America.
Real quick, we'll keep going. But you quit bodybuilding. Now, you got to tell your dad, which he loves, right? He's so into you bodybuilding.
Uh-oh.
Hey, I'm done, Dad. I think I'm going to pro wrestling. Dad says what?
Oh, boy.
Yes, the only thing that saved me with that was he would once in a while watch some of it with me, and he knew that these people were something special. So I think in the back of his mind, he knew he probably wouldn't have a problem with it if I was successful.
Right.
Okay, that he could brag about me.
Oh boy.
But anyway, what happened was, so Gary, knowing that I need, he goes, "You're all right?" You know, I said, "Gary, I don't know, I don't have no gear." He goes, "And I really don't have the money." I said, "I'll be honest with you." He said, "No problem." He gave me $100 bill and the address or
Gary.
phone number to B&A Boot Shop, Paris, Arkansas. They're the only ones that really made boots back then. Take a piece of paper, trace your bare foot, and send it to them with $100. They'll send you the boots. And while you're at it, call K&H. You know who that was? Carl and Hildegard. They made all the wrestling gear back then. Everybody got their trunks from them. I called them. I got the measurements. They sent me the trunks. I got everything just before the show. So I go up to East Lyme, Connecticut.
Hold on. You
Yeah.
get the outfit. You put it on. I'm sure you're in the mirror, right? You
Of
got the
course.
boots. Got
Yeah.
the trunks.
Yeah.
Put it on. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking,
I'm a
I feel
wrestler.
like this is normal. I've
There you
always
go.
been used to being in front of people.
Yeah.
I know I can do this shit, okay? A guy who's a promoter picked me to go there and work for him after only 2 weeks in training. Here's what I knew, to listen. And always anybody that I worked with in the beginning, that was what they said. He listened well. That's when the healer used to call a match. You know, in the ring, no pre-plan. If you approach those guys in the locker room to go over stuff, they say, stay the fuck on the other side. We're not going to talk all that, try to remember shit. That's too much of a burden, you know? So anyway, what I did was, tell you what happened was I called that number. They blew me off. But when I went there to the show, I'm standing in the corner, what they call the block pose, like this. And I'm recently off to 85 Mr. America, now filled out and blown up. And the guy says, wow, he goes, you look good. You got some physique. Did you ever think about getting into the wrestling business? I said, yes. As a matter of fact, I called somebody. And they blew me off. He goes, who'd you call? I go, you. He goes, oh, we don't know, it's a closed business, and we didn't know what you look like. I said, oh, it's like a different story now, But EWA was Dennis and Murdy Galam and one other guy, Jimmy Ryan. And so they said to me, all right, well, come down. No, so I'm at the show, and he approaches me, and he says, would you think you might be interested in training? I said, yes. I said, but if it's anybody here that I saw wrestle that's doing the training, because I knew they did that a lot, except for the one guy in the mask, I said, I think I could probably teach them. I got martial arts experience, amateur wrestling experience. I'm a bodybuilder. You see my body. I can already do this stuff. He goes, well, as a matter of fact, it is. It's Ted Petty. And that's how I met Teddy. And he started training me. And already, like, I was ready to go better than a lot of guys that were already working.
Real quick, because I want to keep going
Yes.
on with this, but just touch on Ted Petty. Was he really the toughest guy you ever met?
Nobody, I'll talk about this.
And by the way,
in more
Ted Petty,
depth.
for people who may not know, was Rocco Rock.
Rocco Rock. He was Cheetah Kid.
Yep.
He was we were tag team partners, and there's pictures of that. He was Antonino Rocca Jr., and I was Mr. New Jersey. We had the red trunks. We were similar in height and build. We loved all the same, type of thing. We loved the business, and he was a blessing because I lived off of that short time I had with him. He sent me and a guy by the name of Davey G, who used to work for the Morton Downey show, on the road to go up into New England, where I won the IWA Junior Heavyweight title. Met a kid named Brian Walsh, was a great inspiration and helped me out tremendously. We did a loop up there, set up the ring, go back to the hotel, wrestle, tear the ring down, and decide, do we start our trip back or go back to the hotel and start it? So we were on a schedule, and it was like a 4-day, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was a lot of work, but we tried to set up the ring early so we could work out.
But Ted Petty was one of the
He was
true
the real deal.
badasses, right?
Real deal, boxer, shooter, amateur wrestler, and trained with a guy by the name of Bobby Bold Eagle. I forget Bobby's real name, it escapes me, who helped train me, worked under the mask in Japan and internationally when nobody was doing it as Panther, and put me over by Teddy's recommendation after a very short time. And he's just sent the text that has that article about me facing him for the junior heavyweight championship. And he said, you worked hard and you always did a good job. I had no problem. So I came up with those guys. You know, Pete Reeves, who was a mid, low card guy, jobber, was his aunt was my mother's best friend. So when I found that out, every time I saw his car, I'd run across the street and bust his balls. Gary Capetta, all these people I met young in my life, so that when I started showing up as a worker and they were around, they were like, oh, hey, that's that kid. You were only a kid. Mike Cicluna. I got so close with Dick Worley.
Dick Worley.
And one of the best
The
compliments was when he met my wife, and he looked at her and he goes, you're married to this guy? She goes, yeah. He looks at me, he looks at her, and he goes, my condolences. And do you know that went right to my heart? Because that means more to me than anything. And afterward, after he passed, his daughter got a hold of me and said, my father adored you. Every time he came back from a show you were on, Tommy Cairo, he could do whatever he wants. He could make it in his business. He could excel. When you got Davey O'Hannon, Pete Reeves, Mike Cicluna, oh my God, it's endless of the guys that schooled you and led by example. You know what Davey O'Hannon said to me? He said, that door in Wildwood, it takes like 4 seconds to close. Make sure you go to the end of the first hallway and make a left where nobody can see you, because you know what guys do after they're carried out? As soon as they get through the threshold, they stand up regular and they start high-fiving each other. Do you know how many people see that because you don't know how long it takes for that door to close? Smart shit.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Detail.
Stuff that.
Detail.
And in that Wildwood Convention Hall, I sat with Bruiser Brody on his last match before going to Puerto Rico, where he was killed. And he said to me, bro, I want you to throw me out of the Battle Royal. Back in those days, I thought staying in was the best thing.
Right.
After a while, you want to be the first one out because it's very easy to get hurt. People don't realize that they're not set up for any spots or bumps. You do that maybe when there's 4 guys left.
Sure.
But never when everybody's in there.
So maybe Miller Mascaris really did know.
No, Mascaris was a genius. Oh, I'm not winning. Toss me out. Less work.
So here you are. You're on a fast track in pro wrestling. You got the build. All the other wrestlers are representing you. That you got to start maybe thinking yourself, look, I think I'm gonna make it in this. I'm gonna be a big time guy. Here comes ECW. How does that start?
Personal favorite company.
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that my wife asked me, what do you want to accomplish? I said, I want us to go to a couple shows every week, and I want to be booked, and all I want to do is break even, and I'll be happy because I'll be working towards my goal. I said, and listen, if we're home, we're going to go out and spend money anyway. So we'll spend money while we're there. You'll shop with the other girls, like, Peaches, and my wife used to hang out, go to the Foreman Mills right next door to ECW Arena. All right, so I'm talking to Pitbull, Gary Wolf, and I'm asking him about, where I can get some work. And at the time he couldn't, but he said, call this guy Todd Gordon. He's looking for some guys, and I think maybe you might be able to get some work. I called Todd, and he suggests that I go up to a place in somewhere in Pennsylvania where he had this variety club, which was a home and a summer program for kids with disabilities. And he said, I'll put you on, you can work a match, and, we'll go from there. So I said, can I bring somebody to work with? He goes, absolutely, because I know I had a better shot working with somebody. So who did I bring but Little Guido? He was working as Damian Stone, okay? We go in there, that building. I said, listen, once we get out, I was already on the track of shocking people. So I said, we got to impress this guy. I said, so we'll spill out right in front of him and light me up and I'll light you up. Okay. Well, we got a standing ovation. Okay. So Todd books us for the Philadelphia Sports Club, first pilot for ECW TV.
Nice.
We work a match. We get another standing ovation. He mentions it in the timeline when he said, "Yeah, we brought Tommy Cairo and James. They blew the house down." So why didn't you feel that way later on? Because the wrong people came in. Todd is God? No, Todd is not God. That's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. So anyway, I'm in, okay? And it's early. Got the Wolfman. Got the kid that put the ring up. I forget his name. Larry Winters, where God rest his soul. Hitman Tony Stetson. You know, all the old guys. Glenn Osborne. You know, that whole old crew who was left behind
Right.
after they built.
Right.
We all, you know, set the table and cooked the food, and they sat down to dinner.
Were they bumped by Morocco and Snooker's arrival? I want to get the timeline right here.
Yeah, they just, as they added what would be considered more important talent, yes, those guys started to fall
That's
by
where
the
it started?
wayside.
But you were still hanging in with that whole
Yeah.
group.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I was doing great under
Right.
Eddie Gilbert. Eddie Gilbert overheard a conversation between me and Hot Body, where Hot Body was claiming to be sick, and like he was worried about putting me over, and I just said whatever, and I knew I was just going to do what I was going to do. He pulled me aside, and he heard it. He goes, "Listen, we're investing in you, and we believe in you." And he said, you know, if that happens again, you do one of two things: you ask for another opponent, or you kick his ass.
Nice.
He said, and that's
Nice.
the only way it can go. And I was his steroid connection. And he picked out the biggest, most built guy and knew that I want what you're taking. You know what I
Right,
mean? It was that
right.
kind of thing. Matter of fact, I have a check from him, I don't know, canceled check or whatever it was, made out to Tommy Cairo for X amount, and under the note, it says gear, and wrestling gear,
Right.
which was true. I had to call him and threaten him. I said, bro, I need my fucking money. Sent it in the mail. Came in the mail. But I was good under him. They gave me the Pennsylvania title, which they didn't continue. And then next thing I know, there's a big fucking blow up, and Eddie leaves, and now it's Paul Heyman.
Well, Todd's with Eddie though at this time, right?
Yes, but I heard behind the scenes there was a discrepancy, or there was an issue with, I believe, Eddie and possibly Todd's wife.
Ooh.
So that put Eddie on the outs, and then here comes conveniently, you know, Paul Heyman,
Hi there.
and here he is. Now that night, when that happened, Doug Gilbert, I mean, Paul Heyman and Todd Gordon are very lucky because he was on a warpath, turned tables over, the whole 9 yards. Then all of a sudden they're gone, you know, and I was being touted as 12 different suplexes and the whole 9 yards. Well, who replaces me? It took two people to replace me, Taz and Tommy Dreamer.
Right. So I'm going to get into Tommy Dreamer one second. Todd Gordon's book's coming out. From what I read, Gordon really trashes Heyman a bit. From what I understand is going to happen in his book. What was Todd? You know, you mentioned Todd has got bull crap. Tell me what Todd Gordon was really like, in your opinion.
Well, I don't want to be disrespectful, and I do like Todd, but I have seen him in the last few years at some of these events. It looks like the same old shit's going on. Like,
Meaning?
these guys are strung out still. Like Sandman, ridiculous. He doesn't deserve to be there. You know, I saw him exchange with a fan without ever looking at him. Take the money, sign a picture, push it over while talking. You know, just a bunch of jerk-offs. You know, not good people. Never progressed beyond that time frame. They're still in that time
They're
frame.
stuck in that moment and they're not getting out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're still living in the past.
I know Todd is not God. That's so freaking obvious. But is Todd underappreciated or swept to the side because of Paul Heyman?
I don't think so. I think
So it's Paul Heyman at the end of the day.
at the end of the day, it's a failed promotion, and I see no reason why they make it such a big deal, and we're still talking about it.
I love these.
Well, because I think
still love it.
it was that outlaw company. That
I mean,
people just hold, close to their
Coming-
heart in some cases, right? Pharaoh loves ECW.
coming-
I was not necessarily a fan.
coming from an East Coast, WWF traditional. As we
Right.
grew up, Bruno into Backlund, into obviously Hogan. ECW was like nothing I had ever been shown.
Absolutely.
And it was the best part was it was on. Sound familiar? Like the old Channel 9 midnight.
Yeah.
This thing was on super late. It felt like a little secret that I knew. And boy, oh boy, did I love that.
The only problem there is it's overdone.
Of
okay?
course.
And when you got guys that they're heralding, like Shane Douglas talks as if he reinvented wrestling 10 times. The bottom line is he broke the cardinal rule, the first one. You don't go into business for yourself. And I could give you more than one instance where they did. And I was a part of it. No worker in a work choreographed situation should have to go in wondering whether or not there's something going on that they don't know about. They did it to Dennis Coralluzzo, who added and gave more to this business by putting guys to work for years, okay? And he was a good guy, and he loved the business. And just because he was running in opposition across the river, Paul Heyman couldn't have that. And he did what he did maliciously.
Well, again, we're fans. I don't know these insights.
Yeah.
What did he do?
That whole thing was trashing the NWA belt. That was a work.
Right.
I mean, that was a shoot.
Right. They didn't know that was going to happen.
Why
Correct.
would you do that?
So he did that
Correct.
to destroy that other promotion.
Exactly. Now, the thing with Angel, which I won't get into in depth unless she's sitting next
Well,
to me.
I want to slow down a little bit, right? Because we're going to get into that. But first, I want people to understand, right? You mentioned Tommy Dreamer before. I am personally not a fan of Tommy Dreamer, the wrestler,
neither.
the man, the beast, whatever you want to call him.
The least.
But I think it's really important that people understand that the man sitting on his couch is really the originator of the hardcore Singapore Cane match.
That he has stolen, by the way.
And Paul
and run
Heyman
with.
rewrote history. So please tell me about your relationship with Tommy Dreamer before Heyman comes in and afterwards.
Okay. And what I really have to tell you is how the whole thing with the Singapore Canes started. 'Cause that's important.
Go ahead.
What was your question was? I'm sorry.
So it's basically you're the originator, right?
Yes.
You're the originator.
Right. Well, here's what happened. So Michael Fay, American, goes to Singapore, gets caned for whatever he did over there, and Paul Heyman gets this idea to run a program with volunteers, hopefully, to work off of the Singapore cane. Okay. So in the locker room, he addresses everybody, and basically asking for volunteers, and he explains beforehand that there will be, color needs to be gotten, and it won't be just your head. So if that's an issue for you, don't even volunteer. Well, the place went dead. Nobody raised their hands. I made eye contact with Hack, and both our hands went up. Because we were friendly, smoked pot together, our wives would hang out, previous. So after the meeting ended, people came up to us and said, like, well, what are you going to do? Anything he asks? This is because nobody had drank the Kool-Aid yet. Okay? They were like putting us down.
Right.
Well, those same guys are still living off that fucking thing that we started. So it was me and Sandman who said yes, and that program ran for a full year.
A year of this.
But yet they skipped to Tommy Dreamer as if he's the one that started the whole revolution.
Is there anything you'd like to say to Tommy Dreamer directly?
Well, the thing about Tommy Dreamer is I may have given him the benefit of the doubt in my head, but when I saw that thing about the plane ride from hell, and like he's backing up this asshole Ric Flair, who's out there acting like a jerk off, he's been manipulating and been a sexual predator for years, and it's gone unchecked, and it's not right. And you have a daughter, no wonder why you're fucking divorced. You got a daughter and you backed up to say, oh, that's Rick. Fuck that. It's Ric Flair. Doesn't make it right. I'm against it. Needs to be straightened out. Just like all these years, the rats. You know what? That's a bad thing. And if it still goes on, there's girls, too young for that, and there should be somebody monitoring it. And I have a whole fucking system to how that could be done. It really needs to be addressed. It's been going on for years. And many women's lives are ruined. And if you could visit those girls who were put through that, I can tell you that their story will be miserable.
I believe we have interviewed
So your
a girl
your
that you
partner
had
or your
that kind
former
of experience.
partner, Angel Amorosa, came on, and she named quite a few sexual predators. One being Bobby Fulton,
Yep.
Another one being Dominic DiNucci,
Yep.
and then accusing Mick Foley and Tommy Dreamer of sexually abusing her in the ring.
Another couple of charmers.
What do you know about that? And is this maybe Angel embellishing, or is this real?
No, if you read what I read, you would know. It's kind of like some of my stories. The first impression you get is, that ain't made up, because you would have to have some fucking mind to come up. She's got dates, times, everything, and it's really graphic. And I'll not be the same. It's like I tell people, young kids, don't look to conquer everything, because there's shit that you can't unsee, will affect you for the rest of your life. And that was added to the list of things that will affect me for the rest of my life. Here's what I know. Nobody could handle me one-on-one in that locker room. Nobody. And I'm leaving out my friends. Teddy, the Pitbulls, I'm leaving them out.
Right.
Nobody else. Paul Heyman would love to have fired me. Why wouldn't he? He didn't have the balls to fire me. So he let me stay there, tried to bury me, which I didn't let happen. If you've seen when he put Chad Austin out there, when he told Chad that he was going over, Chad was like, Tommy's going to fucking kill me. He's like a main guy. And all of a sudden, I'm going over. Well, I gave him a beating. I threw him from one end of the ring to the other. And then I had a misstep where I landed. He put his feet on the ropes and he pinned me. Any goofy gimmick they gave me, I made it work. They wanted me to be a construction worker because I looked badass. I had the biker, do-rag. I had a full, leathers, and I looked the part. That was too much for them. I had to build. I looked the part.
But why wouldn't Paul want to use you then, right? You had the look. You had everything. Why would he say, no, this isn't the guy I want?
Was it politics?
No,
Like you didn't...
he knew by how I carried myself that I wasn't going to drink the Kool-Aid and I wasn't going to be up for what he had planned. This guy's going to be a problem. But I got nobody to send out there to do anything. I don't have the balls to do it. And I only left because I couldn't fucking walk. And part of that is Tommy Dreamer. Here's what's crazy. We're in this, it's me, Hack, it's Cactus, it's Dreamer. So Dreamer's supposed to dive out on us. But you got to make connection with me at some point when we're out on the floor so we know you're coming.
Right.
You just can't come. He just comes. So in the middle of us still dealing with somebody else, we got to catch Tommy Dreamer.
Right.
And on another occasion, when I did a spin kick on the floor, which is he's on one corner, I'm on the other. I run towards him and I jump up and I spin. The way to catch the person is you kind of catch his leg and you fall back. He put his hands up, which I ricocheted and landed on my tailbone, which is I'm crippled because.
So are you trying to say that Tommy Dreamer was in on it with Paul Heyman and was trying to run you out?
Yeah, they had to talk about it. Do you know what he said? What Heyman said to Angel when he said we're going to poke you, maybe with the stick, and she said, be careful. And he said, why? It's already fucked up down there.
Really?
Can you imagine?
That's crazy.
Okay.
Dreamer said this.
No, Heyman.
Heyman.
Now, here's what happened. I'm selling. First of all, know this. When I asked Angel why it was going on and I didn't know about it, why didn't you tell me? She goes, your daughter was just newly born, and I knew that you would end up in jail because I know you. So she kept that from me, knowing I would have fucking straightened that. I would have stopped their party in a heartbeat. I didn't walk through the back entrance. I didn't deal with these guys after the matches. I had a wife I was loyal to. I wasn't snorting coke off of hookers' asses. That's fucking ridiculous. When you have one girl, especially underage, and multiple guys in one room, you're half a fag. You're half a fag. What guy in his right mind wants to double team a girl? I don't want to see your dick, bro. That's gay. You better question your fuck. You might as well have another guy in there then. And you can all do whatever you want to do. But nobody I know is going to be affected by that. Okay? But the fact that she didn't tell me. So I'm selling, right, outside the ring. What was supposed to happen was Cactus was supposed to do the last maneuver to her and go bang, bang. And then Dreamer, unscripted, comes in and pokes her in. I didn't see any of this. I'm outside. Now, when that happens and you're in the ring and it's not something you talked about, you trust the people to say, well, we had lived sometimes. I'll roll with it. No one should ever expect to get hurt behind a worked, choreographed. Guys, it's not a fucking shoot. Don't you get it? Going into business for yourselves and not telling everybody what you were going to do is the first rule that you don't break, which means to me you're not even welcome in this fucking community.
Did Dreamer ever come to you and say, hey, look, Tommy, you got a lot of talent, but you need to play Heyman's game.
Nope. They knew it. I saw a video, and Terry Funk is like this, listening to Heyman on the steps. I was like, this is fucking bullshit. Some kid came to me at a convention. A lot of people will say stuff that I did that I don't remember. He said, I remember you screaming in the locker room, this is bullshit. This ain't the way wrestling's supposed to be. He goes, you didn't give a shit. When somebody doesn't have the balls to fire you or send somebody after you, you can do anything you want. You can act however you want.
I remember on our friends at Busted Open Radio, I remember someone had called in.
Friends?
And Tommy Dreamer was on, and they said that they wear a Tommy Cairo shirt. And that's when I first started to know you a little bit. And I thought it was like, oh, nice pop. But Dreamer's reaction was very strange. Like, he tried to foo-foo it and move on.
Of course.
And so we're basically saying Tommy Dreamer is not who he presents himself to be.
No, and look what he did on the Plane Ride from Hell interview.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, you're a father of a daughter, and you can sit there and say it's okay. I think Ric Flair is a fucking disgrace. You're still cutting your head at this age? Are you fucking kidding me? Like my wife said to me when I was going to a local show, because it was in my town, to help them out. And she says to me before I leave, don't do anything stupid. I said, like what? She goes, like, cut yourself. I go, honey, I'm not going to cut myself. So guess what I did? Got together with the young kids. All the older guys that knew my wife wanted no part of it.
Right.
They don't want Mrs. Cairo.
Right.
Because she'll fucking come down and bust your neck. They said, let's get a piece of tape, get a red marker, and we'll put the tape over your head, and we'll just put like little dots like it bled through. Bro, it looks so fucking real. So I come home. It's like 11:15. My wife's like, oh, you're home early. I said, yeah. She goes, how did it go? I said, listen, come down and I'll tell you about it. She gets halfway down the stairs. She spots the bandage. She goes up and she says, you idiot. She runs upstairs. It took me everything to get her to come back down so I could rip it off and show her it wasn't real. She goes, you got me. So for this guy to still be out there, number one, like, why are you wrestling? Okay? And why are you cutting your head? And why are you a sexual predator and a piece of shit? And why do so many people overlook that? Okay? Well, I'm here to tell you I'm not one of those guys. The only way I could be a different guest than most of what you had is if I could tell my full story, because I trump everybody in every category, and I challenge anybody to have a to disagree. Come on, make a call. Tell me why I'm not what I say I am.
So you leave, Paul Heyman runs you out, right? When do you start getting involved in the drugs? When does that go out of control? Because you seem like you have everything under control. Here you got this bodybuilder. Now you're this great wrestler. When do the drugs hit, and when do the drugs get out of control?
I was highly functional. A constitution like no other. That's why I sit here today. Like, you could take 2, I take 5, and I drive you home. That kind of thing. And to go home and rearrange my sock drawer. Like, I just had a constitution. It took tons of anything to really, knock me out. I never, passed out from anything.
No, going back, here's a guy that refused to do any drugs and maybe smoked one joint. Now you're becoming a heavy pillhead, right?
Yeah, well, I would say that started way before wrestling. That started when I discovered a thing called Doradine and codeine, which is, in our high school, we had a parking lot. It was called the courts. That's where the basketball courts were. It was an open-air drug market that the cops wouldn't even go in. And, you would, at any given night, all cars parked different ways and who had what, and we experimented with everything. But that was in my very early years. But I learned to control it, and I never really, when I would go to people who knew me and say, I think I got a little issue, they're like, you fucking do everything, you do for your family, you work, you're an electrician, you wrestle, you're a bouncer, you do everything, you're fine. I never got anybody said, yeah, you know what, I think you're right, so maybe you should. So I didn't do anything or look for any help.
No effect on your marriage, or
yes, it had an effect on my marriage.
Okay.
So you do become a full-time addict, though, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So do you reflect back now, and like Jimmy said, it affected your wife, it affected your kids. Is that the biggest regret you have?
Yes, it is. But what I say is this. I was abused, and I felt like the only reason I've ever done any drugs in my life was to self-medicate because I couldn't stop my mind from the worrying, from, regrets, the whole 9 yards. And I said to my wife, there was a T.D. Jakes. You know who T.D. Jakes is?
Yeah.
Okay. He talked about the person. So my wife said to me, this has been 30 years of torture, and I've had enough. We'll stay together, but emotionally, this is after my stint in a hospital with this leg. There were some things that occurred. So to me, it was survival. Like, I look at her and I go, I was only trying to survive. If I hurt you in the meantime, I didn't mean it. I was protective of you. You never had to worry about, me cheating on you. The biggest thing was I had a drug problem. Had it mostly under control, but she knew about it. My wife is so well schooled. Here's what happened. I had something that I shouldn't have had at the hospital, and I had it in my beard balm tin. Do you know she found it? I came out of, we stopped at a wrestling show where Sonny and Chris were. I had my young daughter and my wife with me. Doc Diamond, who used to run all the shows, he put a couple Xanax in my top pocket. Do you know we went to get ice cream, and my wife stuck her hand in my pocket? She just knew, like I knew when I worked in the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, if a couple of guys that are partying for the weekend and check in, and they want their room double locked, which means only me, security, could open it when they came back. Nobody else could get in, like housekeeping and look around. As soon as they left, I went right up in their room, and I made two moves. One to the jacket pocket on the back of the chair. There's the Coke. And right in it, open up that drawer, there's the weed. That's where you roll the weed. I took all their weed, and I took all their Coke. And when they came back and said, can you unlock the room for us? Sure. I go up, I wait a couple minutes, I go, everything all right? They go, yeah. What are they going to do?
Right.
Say somebody stole our drugs? So it was like instinct. And my wife picked up on that, and I got caught out there, and she said, that's enough. I can't. And the doctor, who was very laid back, said, you tested positive for so-and-so, and, that's not going to help you. That's all he said. He wouldn't freak out. Oh, my God, how could you do this? So that set me back a little bit because I'm like, now I'm fighting for my marriage, So T.D. Jakes said this: if you feel like you've been tortured, you got to stop for a minute because the other person doesn't get off the hook. Okay, that other person is dying inside from guilt, and the more you reflect on the past, the more it hurts him. So really, you're doing the same thing. Two wrongs don't make a right. The cycle should be stopped. I tried to stop it. I had that miserable Italian gene, grandfather, uncle, and my mother all had that. Like, nothing makes them happy. Always screaming, always miserable, always looking at the negative side. And, I had to fight that my whole life.
But do you see your wife's side of it?
Sure I do. But you have to understand, all of this was under the cloak of darkness and trying to survive. I never stopped to think, oh, that's fucked up, you did that. I don't know, I never did. Now I know it was fucked up. But I am such a good father, and I think a husband. To this day, if I'm driving with my wife and she's in front of me, where she has to be, because if she gets stuck, I can't be ahead of her, right? I always scoot ahead of her and pay a toll for her. And the person asked, like, what? She says, I don't know, my husband has always done that. I learned that as a kid, and, he'll wave her on, and it makes me feel good. I'm still treating my wife like she's special, and I still do that. I tell her how wonderful she is, and I'm really trying. And I sent her that clip, and I said, that's where I'm at, okay? So consider that as I continue to try to be a better person and treat you. I think the man's biggest dilemma is he's always bigger. A lot of guys are bigger outside of the home than they are in the home. In the home, you think my son gives a crap about my wrestling career? The only reason he acknowledges it because my nephews find out, and they're like, oh, they mimic the me and Angel. Get up off your feet, rise and pay homage to my new manager, the Virgin Princess Angel. They know that, word for word. So, there's my son he gets excited when somebody says, oh, your dad's Tommy Cairo, teachers and whoever, and my wife is so amazed that it never ceases to amaze her how we'll be somewhere, somebody will come out of nowhere and like recognize me or know me from another arena because I've done so many things. And the feedback is that I was always a good guy when I didn't know I was. I thought I was so, focused that I didn't help anybody or didn't. And I got people that told me, no, you stopped your workout and taught me how to do my biceps. And then went right back like you never. He said, you helped us and we were in awe of you. All the kids from that era that were in the gym, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a gym to raise a champion. Mm. And those guys refer to that as the year that Cairo won the jersey. That's a compliment. I'm flattered by that, and it's still talked about to this day.
So I want you to, because we're coming to a close, I want you to tell the people out there what your future goals are here. You were telling us off air, and then we'll hit you with the Pharaoh's final question. So
sure.
Go ahead.
All right, well, what I want to do is, the years that I have left, whatever they are, in my head, I'm a realist, not a pessimist. I'm thinking if I make 80, I'll be happy. That's 15 years. I know now, the Lord put it on my heart, you can, and I had this before, but I didn't follow through. You cannot leave this earth until you help the very industry that you love and had endeavored in. And that's pro wrestling. Everybody that could help the business is still in front of the camera. You know who they are. I don't have to name them. Get your asses behind the scenes because it's a fucking mess. Okay? The only way this wrestling business can be saved, and I outlined it in a thing called the Ironclad Project, which is you have to reestablish your territories. The problem with what they did was they tried to create territories by calling them developmental. That's the first mistake. It sounds less than. Okay? So you have to develop these with trainers that teach a different style than each other. So when we start these little promotions around the country in different areas, it has to be a different style. Because we don't want everybody coming in doing the same thing. Did you ever watch the match between, what's his name? English guy, Pit Finlay, and who's the English guy? Shooter. Damn. Anyway, that's, we got to.
His name is?
Yeah, I can't remember. But to fix the industry, we have to reestablish, and no one from the big two can accept someone out of school or out of a territory unless they've gone through these accredited and approved schools. And we want to know that if, whoever it is out there that's a wrestling legend that is doing the training, he can't pass it off on somebody else. We want to know he's involved in overseeing the training because that's the only way the kids are going to get the benefit. If you get, who's your trainer over there at, give me somebody's name, Austin Idol's Wrestling School. Oh, his name is James Smith. Well, who's he? Oh, well, he was a guy. Well, what's his working name? Well, he didn't really work. What? So he's training you? I'll give you this. I've seen guys who could do that and do the drills and all that. But who's teaching you the psychology and the ring etiquette and how you act and how you treat people, how you introduce yourself when you come in, how you come clothed, do you look decent? How's your gear? Is your ring work sloppy? Can you lock up solidly? Are you sending a guy only partially across the ring? He's got to run himself the rest of the way, which is fucking stupid. Are you waiting for 3 minutes for the guy to get to the top rope and you're not doing anything to sell what he gave you last, which is what he should have pinned you with in the first place? Going to the top rope is ridiculous. I would say if I see you grab the guy's head, pull it up to you, and you put your head down and you talk to him, you'll never work here again. How do you do that? And you're doing it right at the camera.
Right.
Okay? If you can't growl and talk, check him, Rev. He's got the tights. 2 tackles, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss. You got it? 2 tackles, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss. Very simple. And I've had guys, we do that in sections. Now he's got me in a corner, and it's a perfect time. You lay into me, you tell me a joke, you tell me the second part of the joke the next time. I used to have that happen. Sal Balomo. Okay? So the wrestling business needs to be fixed, and it's going to take 10 years, and it's going to be an investment, but you have to come out of a school that was approved. That's the only way we know, and we have a certain criteria, and as soon as you break that criteria, you get one warning, and then you're gone. And we won't call them developmental. It's just a territory. That's it. Nobody even has to know that it's connected to either of whoever's the big two at the time. Because if you look at the lineage that they have behind the scenes at AEW, you would have to say to yourself, there's no way Tony Khan is letting them run the show. He's running the show, something like Paul and Vince have done, where they only do what makes them happy and makes them giggle, whether it's good for the business or not. That's not what you do. You're supposed to make decisions that are good for the business and to help your people, not bury them. If you're going to try to bury them, just fucking fire them. Don't try to bury them. Give them a chance when they get to the next area. So it's a long haul. But if anybody's interested, I'll run a halfway house training center. I got a CADC in drug addiction counseling. I know I could go out to shows and find those guys that are floundering. That will be. Let's get them ahead of time before they're the next person to die. Okay, you mean he said that to you and it didn't make you think that maybe you should wellness check? I do wellness checks on my people just like they do on me. How you doing? I haven't seen you, haven't heard from you. What's going on? And if they start ducking your calls, you got to go check on them. Nobody's doing that. They're too busy putting themselves over. We're tired of seeing you. Your time is done. If you're such a genius in wrestling, go behind the scenes and fix this mess. Tell Tony Khan we're not staying unless you let us run the show. Got Arn Anderson back there. The problem is Arn Anderson's getting guys put in front of him that can't work, that don't know the business, that don't know what's right and wrong. They're coming out of schools. Back in the day that trained all the guys that were in the golden era, there was only 4 or 5 places you could go. You can go to Vern Gagne, you can go to Ed Sharkey, you could go to Guy Woody Farmer in California, you could go to Stu Hart, but they were all closed. You had to have an in. And all the training was done to the right level, teaching everybody the right way. Then all of a sudden, and they would force anybody out who tried to open up who didn't have the credentials. That started when those guys died. Now everybody's got a school. Everybody's a trainer. I don't even know who these guys are. Never heard of them. So if you're being trained by someone you can't trace back, or you've been trained and you're at a show and they're asking you to do something that doesn't sound right according to the pedigree of your training, you check your pedigree against the guy who's telling you the promoter that's asking you to do, and you say, either get on the phone because you have a phone now, and they want me to do this. No, definitely don't do it. Or I know enough by my training, and this is who trained me. If you could trump his name, then I'll do it. If not, I'm not doing it. And this is what I'd like to do. Because evidently, I might know a little bit more than you, and I can help you.
Well, we should start promoting that for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Pharaoh's final question.
Wow. Okay. Actually, I have a couple, but I'm going to try to just stick with one. You mentioned Rocco, obviously. What was your thoughts when Mr. Simmons and Mr. Bradshaw decided to take liberties on Public Enemy?
I thought, well, did they really? Because it certainly didn't look that bad to me.
Well, to the fans, right, Mike? To this day, they all, they say, and they themselves say that they,
Well, I know this. Johnny was a so-so tough guy, but Teddy was the real deal. He could have handled easily either one of those guys. No problem.
So they got away with one there.
Yeah, and I think it's terrible that, even Paul Heyman, he never, ever, talked about any of Teddy's legit background and just kind of made him seem like he was a nobody, which is, I don't know why. I really don't know why. I don't even know why he had a problem with me. I believe that he knew right away, this guy ain't going to be with the program. Okay? I walk and talk it. I'm not in for no bullshit. I'm here to do a job. Angel and I got this snuff from Sal Balone. He brought it back from wherever. It's brown tobacco, fine, and you snort it. Well, they turned that into they're snorting heroin in the locker room. Meanwhile, they went on to do way more shit than anybody, and it wasn't true. It was fucking tobacco. I never was in an ECW ring compromised, ever.
Period.
Okay? Just didn't do it.
There you
I
go.
always waited, and I got far from the arena all on my way home, smoked my joint or whatever. There was no real hard drugs at the time. It was a few pills here and there. At one point, yeah, it got out of hand, but it never ruled me. I had one real bad thing that happened to me coming back from bouncing at Trump Plaza in Atlantic City. It's unfortunate that it happened. And my wife said the phrase was coined with me, walking overdose in Atlantic City Hospital. Okay, that's a story for. I'm going to have to come back.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, and I have some things that I want to talk about that have led me, to the point in my life where I had to make the changes, and it was not that long ago. I was still in trouble a short time ago, but that's been the story. Like I would tell the story that's outrageous, to people that know me, and they go, "Yeah, of course." They would say, someone told another guy, Cairo, with those big hands in my face, smoke, smoke, or commandeering somebody's coke because they still had it. And I'm like, you're still snorting that? You pussy, give it to me. And I would commandeer their bag
Right.
and snort it because that's how I was. I was like out of control with almost anything.
Well, I got to tell you, you lived a life of many people here.
Yep.
We got to have you back on for part 2 for sure.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't go on because this could go on for. There's so many questions, man, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I got to tell you, you are I think you're a hero to a lot of people. You're a walking example of our true testament to a survivor,
Perseverance,
for
that's
sure.
for sure.
Perseverance, absolutely. That's the better
Absolutely.
word.
Yep.
All right, so we'll see everybody this Saturday, 11 a.m. JoJo from Big Brother.
All righty.
Pharaoh, you want to send us away? But again, thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Cairo.
Tommy.
You're welcome.
You are a legend.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you again, Tommy. You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh. And until Saturday,
Saturday.
we will see you then. Later.